don't fucking tell me what you're gonna do. Go do it. But how quick are you integrating the lessons? That's, to me, intelligence. Here's the indication that you're learning, and this is to me, this is such a beautiful point in the essence of most of my teaching. The indication that you are learning is you are getting a different outcome in the same situation. In our business, the second half of the year is fucking intense. It is by far the most intense part of the year, which is crazy to me because I feel like every year, the first half of the year is getting busier and more intense. But July, August, we move into the summer and then into fourth quarter, it gets really intense. So I like to use the mid-year, I do a mid-year checkup on my goals. Where am I relative to my goals? And then I can make conscious decisions around where I need to improve. Now, what do you think I'm using to figure out how well I'm doing? Opinions, feelings? Yeah, I'd start with numbers. If I'm not at the numbers that I want to be, why am I not? So learning any skill is a pretty basic formula. I'm going to talk about skills, intelligence, and learning here. This is the frame of today's meeting. But learning a skill, so if I take an assessment, I realize, okay, I need to get better at a skill. And we talked about this the other day, upskilling, right? The better you get at a skill set, the more valuable your skill set, the more money you're going to make, right? So it turns out the formula for updating a skill set is pretty easy. It's simply repetition, volume over time. So you could take 5 years to learn a skill set, or you could take 6 months to learn a skill set. What would be the lever? Yeah, how many reps are you taking? How savage are you about perfecting this skill set? You'll get there either way if you don't give up. The time it takes you to do it is relative to the other input, which is repetition or volume of at-bats. So that's how you develop a skill set. So if you look at your mid-year and you're like, I need to get better at this skill set, then work better at your at-bats. Well, how many at-bats am I getting? What can I do to improve those at-bats? Those at-bats may be your sales. They may be interviewing. They may be training. They may be team building. Whatever it is, you can figure it out by just going backwards and figuring out, well, how do I increase my at-bats? What do I need to do? So if you want to get more interviews, what's the number one thing you have to do to get more at-bats? Got to stay in alpha. Like, I was literally terrified to be in a position where I didn't have interviews. Every week, any week, and it never happened, but if I had any week in which I didn't qualify, to me, that was putting another month to how long it was going to take me to get to my goals. That's how I saw it. One missed week was at least a month. Probably more than that, but that's how I saw it. That kept me motivated to never let that happen. Now, because you're an alpha, does that mean you're going to get an interview? No, it doesn't. But I want to make sure I'm doing everything in my power to put myself in there. And here's the point. If Vanessa came to me, she was like, hey, I need an interview. Okay. I look at her board and I'm like, yeah, you don't have any jams. When was the last time you weren't in alpha? 2019. You weren't here in 2019. That's my point. Got you, loud and clear. Let's go get you an interview. She totally has leverage. Why? Because she's fucking consistent and she's always getting it done. So I'm listening. Make sense? What kills me is somebody who is either super erratic, right? They're super inconsistent and they're in alpha for a week. They're like, oh, I want an interview. Well, stay in alpha, fucker, and we'll talk about it. Or somebody's like, oh, I don't want to interview that person. Oh, I don't want to interview that person. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm not interviewing this week. Oh, and then they're like, but I haven't had an interview in 4 weeks. Yeah, little self-eval may tell you, figure out why that is. It's like people sniping with interviews. Try to keep that from happening, but inevitably there are people who try to do this shit. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know what sniping for an interview is? You decide before you see the person, or decide after you see the person whether or not you want to interview them. Good, don't fucking do it. Okay? So if you're looking for at-bats, you got to figure out what is the thing I need to get more volume in, whatever that is. And then what do I need to do to get that? And that may mean partnering with one of our market directors or one of our hiring managers to do that, depending where you're at. But work backwards from there. Where is my skill set lacking? Volume and time. And then the third component of that is a good coach or ongoing training. Okay, intelligence. I would describe intelligence, and I think intelligence can be developed, at least by the definition that I use, which is intelligence is simply the speed at which you adapt and learn. All right, so some of us are incredibly stubborn. We adapt and learn at an incredibly slow rate. Usually if that's going on, it's because there's something else we value more. We put a man on the moon in the 60s. Haven't been back since, just really fascinating for a number of reasons. And no, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but anybody remember why we put a man on the moon in the 60s? Competition. Competition was driving it. It was the space race. Once we did it, we were kind of like, oh, fuck all. It's kind of boring up here. Try something else. It turns out when we value something enough, we will find a way to win. And human history is full of this. So when I see somebody not integrating the lessons quickly, especially if I think they're a relatively smart person, then immediately I'm going, what are you valuing more? What is it that is more important to you? And there are exceptions, to be fair, but I have found, as a whole, the more somebody talks, the less they walk. Which is why, if somebody tells me, oh, I'm going to be your next owner, watch, I'm going to high roll everyone next week. There are exceptions, by the way, as there are to about everything, but that's almost always a red flag to me. Don't fucking tell me what you're going to do. Go do it. But how quick are you integrating the lessons? That's, to me, intelligence. Now, here's the indication that you're learning, and this is a really, to me, this is such a beautiful point in the essence of most of my teaching. The indication that you are learning is you are getting a different outcome in the same situation. Somebody say that in their own words. Explain what they think I'm saying. What do most people try to do? Let's say you're stuck in a situation and you're not getting a result. What is the natural human tendency? Say it in the frame of what I'm talking about, using situation or outcome. What do they try to change? The situation, not themselves. Are there good reasons to change the situation? Yes. Are the exceptions to what I'm saying? Yes. But for the most part, real change is going to happen by changing you, which changes the situation. And here's what I have found. I got an owner right now who continues to be balls. He sucks. And I have pushed him on to 3 or 4 different campaigns now because he's convinced always it's the market or the campaign or some other condition. So now he's at a point where he's not arguing with me. It took him long enough, but he's like, yeah, it's me. Well, great. Now what are we going to do about it? Why? Because we keep throwing him different opportunities and he keeps making excuses. Does that make sense? I see that as at every level of the game. This store, this market, that market. When I opened up in Orange County, everybody told me I shouldn't have. Bad market, wouldn't do it, too expensive, not enough leads. We were number 1 in 6 weeks. Promoted our first assistant manager in 90 days. The rest is history. Built a massive campaign. When we sent Brennan to Miami, I was told, oh, don't put anyone in Miami. Hurricanes. No, there's people that believe that story. Lots of people have failed out there. Lots of people have failed here. What's the difference? It's this fucking story of the individual. They're trying to change the situation, not themselves. How I know you're learning is you are getting a different result or a different outcome in the same situation. And that's really it. You have skills, you have your level of intelligence, the speed at which you learn, and then the frames in which you learn in, which is focusing on changing your outcome, not your situation. And the entire business is really framed around that. And if you understand that, then you know what levers to push. So most people want to change their situation before they want to change themselves, which is why most people get stuck.